Today I just want to review real fast The Left in the Dust. And we're really the overall theme and what we're exploring today is the sacrifices that the um, farmers had to go through in the American Southwest when the Dust Bowl occurred in the 1930s. And that is the theme of our story as well, A Gift from the Heart. Remember, Ryder Lewis and Company, the family will be reading that drama or that play for us. And but the question of the week on that is, when do people choose to make sacrifices? Well, you think about it, they really didn't, the farmers of the Southwest didn't choose to make that sacrifice, but it was more cause and effect because of their poor farming practices, and they didn't even realize that they were farming so poorly or treating the land really as poorly as they were, it then affected the outcome. Or when the droughts came again with a very small amount of rain, it just happened to create this huge cloud of dust. And so that was really the cause and effect of that. And so they just had to sacrifice everything, families, farms, cattle, just by the thousands. Unfortunately, the herds died because there was no water, and then the dust just choked them. So it was a very difficult and devastating time. One of the things that I want to show you as well is the Dust Bowl and a portfolio that is built that I want you to explore as well. And it is really cool, and you can take some time. So we're going to take a look at that in just a second. But before we do that, I also want to just read about telling stories. So remember, we're talking about the Dust Bowl. It happened back in the 1930s, so that we're still hearing the stories about it. And so this is tying into this with the telling the stories. Remember, we do not have vocabulary this week, but we can certainly still hear about those words. So I am going to read through these words before we get started. We have shock, ceremonial, backdrop, abundance, drought, and graze. All right? So we are on page 419, following along. Everyone tells stories. Sometimes we tell stories to shock each other. Sometimes we tell stories to calm ourselves before we go to bed. Often we tell stories to entertain each other. Before the written word, storytelling was much more than just entertainment. It was the way people passed down their traditions and their culture's history. Many cultures that didn't have access to the written word used storytelling to make sense of their world. They would tell their stories around ceremonial campfires against the backdrop of the night sky. Sometimes they would use art. The Greeks told stories about the origins of their gods through images painted on pottery. Well, we know about that through Greek mythology. Stories also passed on murals. Stories also passed on morals or lessons that offer a culture's advice on how to behave. Aesop is a wonderful storyteller on that. One popular Sioux story is about a last ear of corn that cries to a woman not to be left in the field. The story teaches not to waste food, whether in times of abundance or drought. Great words. Antonyms. We're going to talk about that. Because the stories were spoken and passed down from one generation to the next, sometimes the details of the stories changed. For example, In one version of a legend, the animals might graze on corn instead of grass. It all depended on the speaker's choice and desire to make things interesting. The important thing was to keep the lesson of the story and the tradition alive. Okay, the next part of our lesson, on to the portfolio with the Dust Bowl. Let's see what the portfolio tells us in storytelling.